Hey everybody. So, this is an interesting little project that I want to do here. I mentioned this on Twitter a couple of weeks ago, and, about a half dozen people said, yeah, this sounds like a cool idea. So, here I am, making a series of videos that will likely be for exactly no one but myself. But maybe that's alright. Maybe that's sort of authentic. But what I'm going to do is, I'm going to read this book, this player's guide. I'm gonna just read it. So it's written by this guy, Peter Olafson, and it's a weirdly, surprisingly important book of my childhood. So when I was a kid, one of the first video games I ever played was Final Fantasy IV, then known to us as Final Fantasy II, which I borrowed from the older brother of a friend, and after I played it, I loved that game, absolutely loved it, still do, it's just one of the greatest, most important games ever. And so I asked for the game for Christmas from my parents, because I didn't have my own copy, I had to give it back. And on Christmas morning, I opened my big present, and it was for this game, Final Fantasy III, or as we now know it, Final Fantasy VI. And my initial reaction was to be disappointed because it wasn't actually what I thought I wanted. And then I realized what it was, that this was a sequel to this other game that I had loved, and I got really excited. And so I went and plugged it into my Super Nintendo, and I just played the wheels off of this game for years and years and years. I put hundreds of hours into it as a kid. Just loved it. Just like so many others, right? This is on many people's lists of greatest games of all time, greatest JRPGs of all time, whatever. So I'm not alone in this at all, in this being a really important game. Now, this book, interestingly, was also the property of the older brother of a different friend, and my friend lent it to me, and I never gave it back. And I just fell in love with it. It was like nothing I'd ever read before. It was this funny, weird, quirky, passionate, beautifully written guide. I mean, effectively, it's supposed to be a guide to teach you how to play the game and tell you where to go. But it's so it's just so interesting. It's so well, at least to 8, 9, 10-year-old myself, it was really wonderfully written, and it got me interested in writing. Really one of the first things that inspired me to want to write. And now writing is such an important part of my life. It's part of my professional life, my artistic, creative self. I do a lot of writing for this channel and for these videos, which I find very fulfilling and enriching. So it was really influential in that way. At the time, I was kind of a weird kid. I was sort of a loser. I sort of thought that video games were for losers. So to see an adult so passionate about this game that I was really passionate about, and I would just read this book to myself like a favorite novel or something. I'd read it over and over again from cover to cover, and I did, and you can see how well loved it is. These books run for a little bit of money online, but usually in much better condition than mine, and not that I would ever sell it. But what I'm going to do, I don't think very many people experience this book, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a playthrough of Final Fantasy VI. I'm going to do so on the SNES Classic, which is a great little way to do it. What a great little system. This is the original American version, Super Nintendo version. They didn't change it at all, so it's the original translation, and all the original quirks and bugs of the original Super Nintendo version. In my opinion, actually, the Game Boy Advance version of the game is the best one. That has some added content that was actually pretty good, and I had a retranslation that was definitely better. They fixed some of the weird bugs and challenges, but this is really the nostalgic version, and it's the version that goes along with the book, of course. So I'm going to just do a playthrough of this thing, and you're going to see clips of me playing the game in the background while you get to see the interesting pages of this book and listen to me read it. So without further ado, I'm going to start with the cover and the back cover, which are fun. So the front cover says, Final Fantasy III Player's Guide, Your Only Hope for Survival, by Peter Olafson. The back cover says, just when you thought you'd mastered the game, Think again. You thought you'd saved Terra, destroyed Kefka, and beaten the Imperial troops. Victory was at hand. You were wrong. Dead wrong. End your frustration and become a master of the game with the Final Fantasy III Player's Guide. In these pages, you'll get all the clues, all the hints, and all the maps you're going to need to survive your quest across two worlds. Inside, find out how to steal Terra from the Imperial fighters, use Magitech weaponry to your advantage, survive in both worlds, reach and defeat Kefka. Part of the charm of this book is absolutely these little captions that go with the images. This whole book reminds me very much of the kind of magazine reviews that you would see in 1990s game magazines, and they always included these little captions. So we can see these ones here. Nice airship, can I catch a ride? Start to see some of the character of the author here. Prepare to go to battle. Peace and quiet? Don't be so sure. Can you stop the madness? So, just the kind of goofiness that we're going to see here. Now, as we flip into the book, you're going to hear me turn pages from time to time, but the images you're seeing are captured ahead of time. So, introduction, the story so far. It begins, as stories so often begin, at night and in a storm. Lightning purples the clouds over Narsh. I'll apologize ahead of time. I don't actually know if I'm pronouncing these words right. Who the heck knows, right? Snow covers the road so well that one would not know there was a road, but for the hedges beside it. The horizon is in darkness, and all the traveler can hear is the wind. No time to be out and about, certainly. At least not by choice. But this is not choice. This is duty. Two men in the heavy Magitech armor of the Empire, a kind of metal overall thick with weapons. A metal overall, okay? Trudge west with the grim persistence of soldiers. On high ground east of town, they pause to assess the situation. Word is that an Esper, an almost mythical creature from an almost forgotten era, has been found frozen under the town of Narsh. The Emperor Gestal wants it. The soldiers do not know why, but they know better than to question. They must do their master's bidding. And so the soldiers, with the grim names of Vix and Wedge, which is funny mistranslation of, obviously, that was supposed to be Biggs and Wedge, famously Star Wars characters famously included in most of the Final Fantasy games from the 90s and early 2000s, but it was mistranslated as Vix and Wedge. And so the soldiers, with the grim names of Vix and Wedge, walk at night in the snow toward the lights that have begun to glimmer in a junction of distant cliffs. Narsh is a northern industrial town with its back to iron hills. It's a place of turning wheels and gears, steam engines, geothermal heat, a jewel in the crown of technology, that modern magic. A strange place for a magical beast to surface, and yet an appropriate one, for it was technology that found it in a new mine shaft. The soldiers are not alone. Behind them is a woman in the same armor, and a curious headdress. She is something of a mystery to her companions. If her name is known and is not mentioned, they call her this woman, this sorcerer. If the leader knows why she is here, he does not say. They do not fear her. In fact, they seem barely to acknowledge her, but they should. She is under control now. The slave crown on her head keeps her the creature of her masters, but gossip says she burned down 50 Magitech-equipped warriors in 3 minutes. She has magic in her, and magic has a deadly history in this world. It's time. The troopers and the woman head off into the misty west. It has started to snow again, and dim lights begin to appear ahead. Soon they'll be at Narsh's gates, and what then? So long since magic touched this earth, and so happily has it been forgotten, 1,000 years ago, the War of the Magi, a war fought with the Esper's power, left the planet a smoking ruin. When it was over, magic was gone. Just gone, along with most of its practitioners. The world has come back from the abyss. It has been a long time in coming, but technology slowly cast its spell once again, and a millennium after the planet was taken for dead, it is flourishing. Yet the temptation to restore that vast, lost power has proved too great for some to resist. and magic is making a comeback. Dark forces have been set in motion, and once again, the world is very close to the brink. So I love this opening. I just think this is very cool, and like I said, I just really I admired this writing as a an 8-year-old kid, 8, 9 years old, I suppose, when I played this, and it just sort of blew me away. All right, let's do a little bit more for this first session. Narsh. You begin the game fighting for the wrong side, the Empire. Sorry, but there's nothing to be done about it. Let's just ride it out for now and see where it takes us. Actually, it takes us straight to the industrial town of Narsh. Ah, technology. Gears turning, belts running, steam gushing. This little community is testimony to the real magic of science. Take a moment to enjoy all the little machines at work. However, for all the activity, there's not much exploring to be done here. These guys in their bulky Magitech armor can't fit all the way down the side streets. So once you've lingered over the sights, march straight up the main drag with Terra in the lead. Hey, the soldiers may be officers, but they're not gentlemen. The party isn't welcome in Narsh, and you can expect a fight. The guards and lobos that Narsh sends to stop you are small fry, and since the Imperial troopers are only temporary companions, use their Magitech weaponry for all it's worth. The mines. Bear north up a street of steaming pipes to the mine shaft. The area is better defended than the town itself, but creatures here can't compete with your weapons either. Put in at the alcove just north and to the left of the entrance. The glimmering blue star within is a save point. While FF3 allows you to save anywhere on the world map, indoors there's a typo there. You should keep an eye out for these pit stops. You can use a sleeping bag, which restores a character's HP and MP, or tent, which restores the party's points here. You should also save the game so you won't have to trek all the way back through this dungeon again should the party come to a bad end within. The presence of a save point is usually a sign that you've got a big fight coming up. That's the case here. Head north again to a gate. The trooper Vix knocks this down without any help, and inside the Narsh guards sick the Welk on you. The first boss of FF3 is a large, horny-shelled snail that can take a lot of punishment. The Welk can also dish it out when it hit in the wrong places. Carefully read Vix's account of the mission briefing. It holds the key to the battle. Attack the Welk's head, not its shell. The Welk rechannels the energy devoted to attacks on the shell back into megavolt electrical storms that can lay waste to a weakened party all at once. What Vix doesn't say is that the monster will occasionally retreat entirely into its shell. The giveaway is a groo sound, and that can lead to some bad moments. If you've ordered an attack against the head, but the head hides before the attack can be launched, the attack will be carried out against the shell instead, and you can expect to get hit back and hard. The trick is to launch your attacks quickly the moment the head reappears. Each member should be able to get in his or her licks once using Fire Beam. Wait until the head reappears and the accompaniment of another groo sound before attacking again. About 7 attacks should turn the Welk into seafood. Okay, we're -1 bottom dweller. Head for the stairs to the north, and there's the Esper on ice. Shouldn't there be some cocktail sauce with this? That's perhaps our first hint at the humor we're going to see throughout here. But wait, it's not behaving like the sort of stuff that you usually find in freezers. It's giving off an odd, pulsing blue light, and suddenly Wedge and then Vix aren't there anymore. Blue lightning arcs between the Esper and the young woman. Then there are explosions, and finally there's a great glaring whiteness. Now, one of the things I loved about this book was all this art, which, of course, at the time I didn't realize was just the Yoshitaka Amano art that was made for the game, and that was all over the direction manual and promotional posters and everything, right? This iconic Amano artwork from this game, and of course he did artwork for all the Final Fantasies. I think he still does artwork for Final Fantasy games nowadays. And I just loved this artwork. I'd never seen anything like it before. So I don't know what I thought. I don't know if I thought that it was made for just this book or something. I don't know, but I associate it with this book, interestingly. All right, let's read just a little bit more. Back in Narsh. The woman wakes up back in Narsh, in the comfy back bedroom of an old man's home, minus her memory and the slave crown used by Vix and Wedge to keep her under control. The memory comes back quickly, though. Terra, that's her name. And Terra has... Oops, run out of time. We interrupt this program for an important bulletin. The Empire's tracking dogs have found you. The troops are at the front door demanding Terra's return along with the Magitech armor. Otherwise, it comes out of their paychecks, one supposes. The old man hustles her out a back door with instruction to make her way out through the mines. Before Terra scoots, collect the elixir from the clock in the front room. Virtually every clock in this game conceals one of these handy drinks. And then we've got a nice subtitle thing here. Terra is a mysterious, magic-throwing young woman we meet while she's in the employ of the Empire. Later, she'll join the Resistance cause. But who is she, and where does her magic come from? And I think maybe that's a good place to stop for this very first episode. So my plan is to work through this book. At this rate, I don't know, it's going to take me about 100 episodes. And, shout me out in the comments if you'd like to listen to 100 episodes of this, or whatever. Tell your friends, your 3 friends in the world who love Final Fantasy VI, and might think this is interesting. Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.